business drivers. Chalo.
I might give it a try, Rajiv.
Yeah, Kaustubh, go for it.
Uh, Rajiv, what I've figured out from this is that this is a
Which
gene.
one have you? Which one have you picked? 23andMe or
Does try to find out from where we belong. Like it's mainly focused if we, how much of a Neanderthal gene do we have, do we still possess, and it segregates us into African, Eastern European, and Scandinavian sets, and accordingly tries to figure out what diseases we might be susceptible to and figure out the solutions accordingly. So what I have found that first of all it does provide treatment for hair fall, and it is also very useful as far as uh, like finding diabetic cures even before they appear by changing the nutritional habits and the dietary habits of the person concerned. These products usually are also, like it is not mentioned, but what I could deduce from it is that these products are also very useful in early detection of malignancy, like even before cancer sets in, even before when the first few genes are distorted. These products are really really great in like curbing it as soon as they appear, like nipping it in the bud, as we say. These products also, which I could find out, is that are good like detectors of schizophrenia in people with history of mental illnesses in their genes. Then we could also like venture into genetic optimization for sporting competitiveness, which this product does endorse openly. Like if a person is willing to aspiring to be an athlete, then it does take all its the person's genetic composition in mind and provide a very customized nutritional solution for that person in order to like excel. For instance, someone wishes to be good at basketball, like it does factor and figure out what probabilities are for that person in order to enhance him or her from the height side, like from the point of view of his or her height, and what nutritional supplements or what nutritional regime that person needs to go through in order to have the most effectiveness in terms of his or her height. And then I did read about at some place that in USA people are very susceptible to cancer. Like the genetic composition of Americans is pretty very susceptible to cancer. Like they did some alteration to their food ingredients. That is the industrialized food ingredients, like in their chips and in their burgers and everything. I'm not sure what that element is or what that ingredient is, but genetic research did find that ingredient, and it did reduce cancer by about 50% in the American population in the early 2000s compared to what it was in the 70s. And as far as the business drivers, I would personally say that the number of registrations and would be the business driver first thing, uh, and tie-ups with diagnostic centers. But since this is a gene therapy, I mean the gene therapy. So instead of going all out all on our own, I would tie up with diagnostic centers, because diagnostic centers do come up with a lot of cases as far as detecting of cancers and diabetes and other hereditary diseases are concerned. I would also tie up with something called Lumen. I've been seeing these ads on YouTube. Lumen is the latest metabolism hacker and tracker. Like it's a device. It's a device which you breathe into it, and it says that what you are deficient in, whether it's vitamin, what vitamin it is, whether it's iron, whether it's calcium, sodium, manganese, you name it. I would tie up with Lumen first of all, and I would also harness Internet of Things for detailed assessments. Like people don't have to always go to the diagnostic centers to make to assess themselves of if they are having like what diseases they might be having. So since Lumen is a new kid on the block, I would also be encouraging other medical hardware companies to come up with devices which are small in size, affordable for retail customers, and which would be connected online in real time. And just like as a SaaS and a PaaS, it would be wired or connected to the server, and with just a breath, or with just a breath of air, or with just a pinch of blood, it would be assessing the genetic mal defects or the genetic issues which a person might have with him or herself. And last but not the least, this this segment, I would say, that has a very good scope for food alterations and selling custom tailored nutritional products. So I would also tie up with food, or with nutritional companies which can make food alterations and sell customized nutritional products for people willing to uh, avail the service, or for athletes, aspiring athletes, or for pregnant mothers. So if their unborn kids do have some genetic malformities which they are not aware of. So that's my take on it.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good, Kaustubh. Very good attempt. Someone else?
Can I try?
Yes, Devanshi, go for it.
So Kaustubh really gave a really good insight. But so I did a little study on the nutrogenomics. It's very different from 23andMe because it says that they don't diagnose any health issues or anything. So their basic focus is on how your food and the supplements you take, your DNA has an impact on them. So what we had to think was that what would be the business drivers or for the company. So I basically feel that now because people are getting healthy, one, you would subscribe to this to understand what your diet should be, how you should eat, and how things are impacting you. They also have something as a personalized nutrition guide. So like people are going vegan nowadays, so they were in news recently for having what do you say, for having diet plans for people who want to go vegan. And so how simple things like how coffee is impacting you, and how, you know, eating at wrong times, or maybe because of your genes your timing should be in a different way. So the basic mode of business drivers would be getting yourself tested to know what kind of food you should intake, and then probably enroll with them for a dietary plan for a long term.
All right, Devanshi. Sounds good. Let's hear one more. Let's hear one more. Then I'll jump in.
Yeah, first of all, I'm talking about this nutrogenomics. It's like, first of all, this is a kind of thing which is not much aware. So we need to, this awareness need to be created among the customers so that we are able to turn more customer and get divert towards the gene therapies and all, so that they can best benefit from it. Mostly their revenues will come from the genetic testing, which will be done on the customers. Basically, in the whatever criteria they have, health, sport, and fertility, and plant based. So their motive should be, I think, to create customer base is the marketing is very much important. That is my take, because awareness is little less about it.
Okay, okay, cool. That's it. That's it. Someone else wants to chip in? Someone else wants to chip in?
I want to say that I think the key
Suryansh?
business driver will be the number of tests per user a customer does, because that will really drive the business furthermore.
Correct. Correct. Okay. Okay,
Basically,
Suryansh,
there are
that's
three
it.
type of there are three type of tests for health and for fertility and for sports, and also there's four type for dietary recommendation. I think plant-based dietary recommendation.
Ah,
So if a customer can take 2 or more, maybe a single test, that will be key revenue driver.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Okay. Kaustubh, we have one more comment. It's okay. Last not the least. Okay. Anti-aging and immortality. Attempted. Okay. Possible sphere for it to expand. Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. So let me chip in. I'm trying to open my Word doc. One second. Yeah, I think it should be in by now. Oh, it's a runtime error. 1 second. Okay, so while I open my Word doc, was everyone comfortable thinking through the business drivers, despite this being a very technical thing, right? And mostly medical science is very technical, correct, for most of us. Yep.
I wasn't
We
much
get overwhelmed.
comfortable.
Yeah. So if you're not comfortable, Akanksha, you should be comfortable with not being comfortable. Why? Because even in fintech, if that's a space, if that's your space, you will encounter companies, suddenly a new technology, which you say, I can't make sense out of this. So you can't give up, right? You make my sense? Because it's about the front end finance is now probably you realize is more than P&L and balance sheets, right? Do you agree with that? Does anyone agree with that?
Yes.
हाँ, it's like पहले धंधा समझो फिर हम फाइनेंस पे आएंगे, करेक्ट? अगर धंधा नहीं समझा तो P&L कमेंट्री तो मैं भी कर सकता हूँ ना. The back office can also do it, right? Okay, so and front end finance also calls you to be prepared for the unprepared, right? Okay, I wasn't really ready for this, but you can't whine. He said, okay, fine, I'll try to figure this out. Okay, so Akanksha, to make you uncomfortable even more, I want you to find something. Take your time. Okay.
Okay.
Applications of quantum computing in FIG. Okay, or you could also do quantum computing for banks. Choose whichever. Do some research and let me know.
Okay.
But for now, so guys, the idea is be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's where growth happens. That's where learning happens. Otherwise, you're not learning. If you want to stay in your comfort zone, you're not learning. Okay, got to stretch your thought process. So let's talk. Let me help you now with very explicit way to find business drivers. It is something that's become very intuitive to me. Although I'm learning, it's not that intuitive for me for a lot of sectors. But then I think let me pass this on. So at a very core basic level, what business drivers mean in the simplest sense, okay, in the simplest sense, what are the revenue streams and what are the cost elements? This is in the simplest sense. What does one mean by business drivers? So all that you guys spoke is close to a business driver, very, very close to a business driver, but you guys were actually trying to answer, you were trying to explain the why 23andMe, why nutrigenomics, what are the benefits of it. You were describing the business of it. Okay, that's where business drivers start. But I think Suryansh was really, really spot on. Okay, what are the revenue streams? So we talk of revenue streams. Okay, essentially this means, okay, what are all the possible ways that a company earns its revenues? Correct. So essentially you ask, let's start asking, who are the users, who are the customers, okay, what are the products. Okay, what are the different price points? Okay, what is the frequency of purchase? Okay, are there any incidental or revenues? Sounds good. This is exactly what we did for Genie, Zenny, and Zenny and Marcus. Yes,
Yes.
we got to understand who the users are. Okay, and cost elements. Where does where does the company spend to build and deliver the products? Those products banega, products or service, whichever. Okay, products, don't take it in the literal sense. Products means product, services, or both. Okay, interchangeably used. I'm just keeping it shorthand here. So what does the company spend, okay, on, okay, to build or deliver products? Because अगर build or deliver नहीं किया, research or development build नहीं किया, design product build नहीं किया, और deliver नहीं किया, supply नहीं किया via a particular channel, offline, online, or omni channel, how will it have a revenue stream? Correct. So we need to also understand the cost elements. So what could be the fixed costs? Okay, what could be the capex? What could be the variable costs? Sounds good. Now let me give you an inkling here. Okay, point number 8 is, okay, it is ideal to have a numeric flavor, okay, for the drivers, which means you probably know that capex is going to be XXX $million, variable cost is going to be XXX $1 million, fixed cost is going to be YYY $1 million. It's ideal to have it, but realistically, okay, as long as you can estimate and at least, sorry, let me actually put it the other way around. I'm sorry. Realistically, as long as you can identify the drivers, okay, and possibly estimate the numbers, the numeric flavor, you are good to go. Okay, prima facie, you're good to go. So you should be at least able to identify what the drivers are, because cost is very, very tricky to find. Okay, you don't have access to the promoters, you don't have access to the company, anyone in the company, right? So it's very tricky to identify. If you can do so, it's ideal. Great job done. Okay, you're a fantastic researcher. But realistically, as long as you can identify and possibly estimate, I think mota the tech spend for nutrigenomics could be this much. Why? Because I'm taking an estimate from Google that has reported some number for genetic, technology for healthcare. So maybe it's utilizing Google servers, SaaS. Maybe it's using Amazon Web Services, and there's the kind of revenue Amazon is probably generating. So maybe the revenue, the capex could be blah blah, something. That is great estimation. Sounds good. What could be variable costs? Okay, and what could be fixed costs? This, in short, is business drivers. Yeah, does that help? Does that help?
Yes.
Very clearly. And I told you, you don't need to have exact, precise numbers. You're not an accountant, mind you. You're not into audit where you need decimal point precision. Okay, that is overboiling the ocean. No. I understand the dhanda, and the size and the magnitude of the dhanda is mere hisab se itna. I could be off. And the more you do this, the better you'll get at it, get at the estimation. Your deviation from the actuals will start narrowing the more you do it. Okay, and that's why I keep telling you, you should just be like more or less, okay, try whatever you do, just try to get, okay, get to work on one deal for your target industry. Just try to get to work on one deal for your target industry. This will make you 100x smarter on the business side. Just that one deal is worth of maybe 10 years of experience in the industry. Just one deal. Okay, so everyone in the room, when we are trying to prepare for the interviews, which I'm sure all of this is helping you, okay, it depends on you now to lift the heavy weights. I've given you, these are the weights you have to lift. If you don't lift, you lose. If you lift, if you work out, if you feel the pain, you endure the pain, great. Okay, and when you enter your interview room, you should just try to convince the interviewer, at the end of it, allow me to work on one deal, that's it. Sounds good. That's like being like baptized into the space. Okay, because if you do one deal, you know, I think so. Swati, right? That's where it started. One deal in gene testing or gene therapy. Now I know what a cost structure could look like for 23andMe or nutrigenomics, and there are many such examples. I just picked up these two on top of my head. Right? Swati, you agree? This is gene therapy, different application areas.
Yes, definitely.
Hana? That's what I want everyone to get at. This on the go, quick thinking. Okay, is that too much to ask? Is it doable? Is it doable?
Yes, definitely.
Swati, yes. How about the rest?
Yes.
Yes, Rajiv.
Correct. Nachiket, all right. Yeah, perfect. So next time you hit upon a new company, interesting company, don't, you know, go actually dig the surface and ask these questions to yourself. How many can I answer? Even if you're able to answer 50% of them, wow, fantastic. I think ye to fatak se mil jayega. Correct? This will depend on your judgment. These two questions will depend on your judgment of the product. This is what you're paid for, and this definitely it's a test of your estimation skill sets. I think in B school everyone did estimation skill sets, right? How do we estimate? Right? So that's where you know this is that. So at least revenue stream to definitely aana chahiye. Cool. Okay. So you know, okay. So remember, what are we doing in the financial model? Let's connect this to the financial model. What are we doing in the financial model? This is exactly what we're doing, right? We are modeling these business drivers, and we will be valuing these business drivers. Without business drivers, what deal are you talking about? Sounds good. So the more you read, because you know what, take up a very, now these gene therapy, unfortunately there are not many large companies which are listed. But let's say if this were not gene therapy, but if this were say I'm very big pharma, okay, the most challenging pharma and aerospace, the most challenging. You crack these two, you're fit for any other industry. Trust me on that. Okay, so let me pick pharma. I'm just trying to make it simple. I'm trying to pick a simple example from a complex industry. Sorry. Okay, chalo. Cool. let's say if you are looking at players in the TB space, tuberculosis. Okay, in India, can someone tell me?
Lupin is one of them.
Exactly, spot on. Lupin is the one of the largest in the world for TB. Correct. Now,
mainly with the rifampicin molecule.
Correct. So when you say you want to understand what could be the cost structure to develop the drug for tuberculosis, you will download the annual report of Lupin and try studying the cost structure, right? Does that make sense to you? So you're not just studying financial growth, EBITDA yahan se yahan jaye. Yeah, wo chhodna. Let's talk about dhanda. Cost kaka gaya. Okay, where is the cost? Read the footnotes to accounts. Okay, figure out where have they expanded. What is the R&D so high? Why is the distribution so high? What drugs have they been selling? Okay, so 80% of the drugs if they sell is TB. What that means is the marketing distribution expense largely will be for the TB drug. So mota the TB drug to go to market will cost you this much, right? That's how you estimate it. That's why you should be reading annual reports. Very easy for listed companies. And there you get an understanding of what could it be for a small company, unlisted company, to achieve the same scale, right? The small company, private company could do better, but if it has to reach the same scale of a listed company, you have some flavor of what could the numerics look like. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? Yes, no?
Rajiv.
Okay. So what that means is last point in business drivers, point number C. Okay. Study the annual reports and investor presentation of a listed company in your target industry to get a numeric flavor. And when I say study annual reports, okay, please try to extract, okay, business drivers again and connect the financials with the business model. Just don't say EBITDA increased by 10%. Okay, big deal. What does that really mean from a business model perspective? Okay, did that EBITDA increase because of reduction in cost structure? And why did it reduce? Which element of cost structure come over? Variable or fixed? Okay, why did it happen? Or was the increase in EBITDA is because cost stayed constant and the revenue increased? Okay, why did the revenue increase? Were there new products or the customer count went up or the frequency of purchase went up or is there a rejig in the pricing? That's how you go to start connecting with. This is exactly what we did for Spice, right? And Uber and Jubilant. Drivers are going to be changing, correct? The metrics will change, okay? And that brings me to the last point in business drivers, okay? Metrics for the uninitiated, ratios, okay? Don't use the word ratios. It's very undergradish. Be professional, right? Front end metrics, okay? For a business, okay, sorry, metrics for, I mean, even simple metrics to measure business drivers will vary industry to industry. What this means is the business drivers are going to be the same what I've scripted here for any industry whatsoever, but of course the way you measure them are going to change. Okay, did you observe that with the 3 case studies we did? And now I change into genomics as well, right? Business driver to wahi hai. How does it make revenue and how does it, what cost does it incur to deliver those revenues? But how do you measure them will vary business industry to industry. Okay. Sounds good. Cool. Any other questions? Any other questions? Was this helpful?
Yes.
Yes, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, super. All right. What we'll do is we'll get into a short break. Okay. And we will resume our financial model. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. I'm going to save this Word doc and I'll share this at the end. Uh, okay. Super. So it's about 10. Should we resume at 10? What time do you want to resume? 10, 10, 10, 15? 10, 15 is okay.
Yeah. 10:15 is fine.
Fine. Everyone?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Grab your beverage. Wake up. Okay. Whatever beverage you like, wake up. Everything's available now. And we'll continue with the financial model. Okay. All right. 10:15. I'll see you soon. Yes, I'm back. Let me know once you guys are back so we can resume.
We can resume.
All everyone in? Awesome. Cool. All right. Let me share screen. 1 second. Let me open the model. 1 second. Okay. There it is. Sounds good. Awesome. Can you see my screen? Just confirm.
No. Yes.
Yep. Awesome. Okay. So what we'll do is the following. Okay. We will continue with the same method of by giving you remote control. I want you to try, fail, and then learn, right? And then I'll come and just stitch it up at the end. Yeah. That method works. That's the best way to learn it, right? Okay. Yes, no, all good with that method. Silence is not an answer, at least in this situation. I was asking, I'll give you control, just like we've been doing thus far. I'll give you control. You guys work on the model. I will guide you. Just stitch the model, the data logic. Does that method work? Everyone up for that method?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. But what I'll do, what I want someone to do is, since we have had a gap, right, of about the weekend, it's a good time that someone recaps the entire model until we stopped. I think we stopped at the balance sheet, right? A few elements on the balance sheet, correct? We stopped at, I think, the assets, the current assets and fixed assets. Okay, so someone to recap everything of the model, and if someone as in okay. Okay, Akansha, you have the control. Ananta, giving you the control, remote control. Okay, yeah. Devanshi, you have Kostoba given you as well. Okay. Okay, Nachiket, even you. All right. There you go. Oh, all right, all right. Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? No one else from the web. I can't see anyone else here. So I've given controls to everyone whose name I can see. Okay, sounds good. Who wants to take the lead? The first step, walk us through the model thus far, step by step, as if you're explaining to the client, okay, what is this? And then we continue working on it from where we left. Who starts?
Shall I begin? Rajiv, shall I start?
Akansha, yeah, I can hear you now. Go for it. Start.
Okay. Um, So we were working on an e-commerce model. For this, firstly, while preparing a financial model, we need to see the various drivers. And for any e-commerce model, the first comes the site traffic. For the site traffic is basically how many users do we have? How many people do visit the site? So it's in this e-commerce model, we have four site traffic routes, that is email, organic search, paid search, and affiliates. For emails, these are basically unpaid, semi-paid.
One sec.
Okay,
Go
okay.
slow, okay? And keep asking everyone else in the room if they have questions after every segment. That's how you
Okay.
will explain the client, correct? Assume everyone in the room is a client. Client will have 10,000 questions, and you have to go slow and keep ensuring after every segment, do they follow it or no? If no, then go redo it. Sounds good. This is also front end practice. Okay, guys. So which means the rest of us in the room, if you don't follow Akanksha, stop her and ask, what is organic search? It's fine. Okay, go for it.
Okay. So we have emails, organic search, paid search, and affiliates. These numbers which we have considered for 2019, the startup year, to 2025, which we have considered the terminal year, these are the assumptions which we have considered, that through emails in the first day we'll have 0 visitors, organic search 10,000, paid search 30, and affiliates 20. This leads us to a monthly visit of these 60,000 again. Sorry. This leads us to 60,000 during the entire year. Hope this average monthly visit assumption is clear to everyone.
Yes.
Okay, so this then we calculate the growth rate. By this we basically mean, like in previous year we had 60,000 visitors to our site, and this year we have 85,000. I mean 2020. So we have an increase in the number of visitors to our site. This helps us just to know how many users have increased, and with respect to that, how many customers we can increase in making. So this helps us in analysis. Then comes the annual site traffic. This is just a sum of monthly visits through various site traffic routes into 12, and this gives us an annual site traffic for all the 4 routes, and this is 7,20,000 for the annual as the annual visitors. Then we have the conversion rate. Conversion rate here is basically from all the visitors and users to our site, how many we were able to convert into our actual customers through various routes. So this is mainly our assumption, which we consider that 6% of email users will be converted to customers, Similarly, for organic, we consider 2%, and for paid search 1%, and affiliates we have 5%. Then this total monthly is basis your total annual visits divided by your down, which we have calculated. One second, I'll just go there. Yes. So then we have the orders placed. How we calculate the orders placed is this formula. It is E24 into E17, which is basically the conversion rate of organic search and the annual site traffic for organic search. This E17. This has given us the total orders placed, which I just mentioned, the users which got converted into our customers and placed orders. In this manner, we calculate the total orders placed for the year. And
I'm not clear
of
on the total monthly visits. Like, how do we come up to a percentage of 2.5? The logic behind it, actually.
okay,
E27.
yeah. See, it is out of this. It is your total orders placed during the year and your total visits during the year. This. One second. So it is basically a percentage ki saal mein, during the year you have placed these many orders and these many total visitors were there. So on an average, this is the percentage which you expect on a monthly visit basis. Because 7,20,000 आपका month से annual में किया है आपने. Hope I'm clear now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Total orders placed. Then we have the order details. It involves the item gross value, which is excluding all the discounts, markdowns, and promotions, whatever the seller offers. Then we have the items per order. These are like in a single order, how many items do we add to a cart in that manner. Average markdown is basically the reduction in gross value which we usually have. And then we have the promotions and discount of 15%. Then cost of goods sold, it is on the gross product, so it's 50%. Here, one thing we need to remember that markdown is always on the gross value, and the promotions and discount which we receive are net of that figure. I mean, gross value reduced by markdown. The remaining value, from that we reduce our promotions and discounts. We'll just further go to the calculations to clarify it further. We have gross order value. Then we calculated the net order value. So first what we did is gross value reduced by 10%. Then from the remaining amount we reduce the promotions and discount. Just a second. Is this clear till here to everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I suggest is you want to hand it over to someone else who can volunteer from here.
Anyone who wishes to can continue.
Who's on your team?
Devanshi, will you take up ahead?
Akanksha, no friend in the room. No one wants to help you.
Sure, I'll take it ahead from here.
Oh, you have a friend.
Yes.
So we've understood till the average net order value. Then churn rate is basically when we understand that how many customers we are losing, that's the churn rate. We've taken it to be 25%. Um, then in the first year, we are assuming that we are considering that all the customers are new customers. So we do not have any active customer base as of now. So whatever customers 18,000 customers that we had calculated earlier, we take as plus new customers. And in the consecutive years, then our closing customer base becomes our opening active customer base. So when we have the new customers, that gives us the closing customer base. So from the 18,000 customers, we lost around 4,500 because of the churn rate percentage. Now the next segment that we come on is our marketing expense, how much we are spending to get the attention of these customers that we've been talking about till now. So again, the same heads as into email, organic, paid search, and affiliates. And this is the average marketing costs, weighted average marketing cost, which is defined basis giving the weightage to from where we are getting most customers and from where we are not. So basis that we have got this average for the marketing expense that we've done on each of the variables. Then once we've got the customers, once we've marketed well, we also have to fulfill the order that we get. So now what is the expense on those orders being fulfilled? So on the freight
Hi,
expense,
Devanshi. Just
hi.
if I may interrupt, I'm really sorry. Like, could you just delve deep into the marketing weighted average thing once again? Like, I really have shaky foundations on that.
So basically, okay, I'll just take you back and see.
The E61, E60.
Yes. 1 second. I'll tell you the logic behind it. So here we understood that although we spent on marketing, we did not get any customers from email. Okay, this is what we figured. Here.
Go down.
1 second. थोड़ा अटक गया, sorry. Here, okay. Here only, right? Jaya, were you? No, Swati, sorry. So basically, we spent a lot on the marketing, but we did not get any traffic on the email. We did not get any traffic on the email. In the same, go to, sorry, where?
Conversion rates, you will get how much we are getting converted through different channels.
The conversion rate is different. He's asking me about the marketing expense that we are talking here. Okay, so the customers. So basically, when we say that we are spending 100 rupees on the email, but we're not getting any customers out of it, so we give the weighted average. Basically, does not it. How do I explain? So it gives the least weight to the email customers, and it prefers the customer and it prefers the way from where we are getting the maximum traffic. Am I helpful?
Yeah, I get it. Just do you mind showing how we construct the weighted thing in Excel? Like,
so the weighted thing in Excel is just this formula, which is sum product.
E56 through E59, like E56 through 59 is email, organic. Okay. And that is E16 to E19.
So
these are the marketing expenses. And what's E16 through E19? Could you show me once?
Yeah.
E16 through 19. These
That
are the
is your
expenses for
annual visitors.
annual visitors. Okay, so we map the cost with the visitors, number of visitors, we get the weighted. Is it so?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
We
Okay,
actually consider the entire expense which we are making, it is basis the total users we have and not just the customers, because marketing
Okay.
involves users and customers as well.
Okay, and what's E20? Like, why we divided it by E20?
That's the total of the E16 to 19.
Okay. 16 to 19. Got it. Thanks.
Okay. So moving ahead. Sorry, my mic is not working. What is the churn rate? So Nachiket, churn rate is basically how much customers we lose. So if we get 100 customers, not that all of them will stay with us. We would also have some churn rate, as in we lose some customers because there can be variable reasons for that. But that is basically what is the churn rate. Are you okay? Now on the order fulfillment, we've spent on the freight and shipping and labor handling charges we've spent. Then there is fixed expenses also, which is the warehouse because we store our goods. So that is the fixed expense that we have taken. Then these are the general and admin expenses, which is office rent, salary, wages, professional fees, and the other expenses, electricity bill, etc., that we take over here. And then we come up to the balance sheet items. Anyone else wants to take up the balance sheet items?
Okay. No, Devanshi, you have no friend. No one wants to help you. When you go back to account.
No, if she wants to, it's okay.
Okay,
Someone
then I will
Swati will do.
give me the control.
I've disabled my control. You can take it. Thank you, Swati.
I'm unable. I have not been given the control actually.
I have given you the control.
Given?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we'll discuss about the some balance sheet items. That is the current assets in which we have covered the account receivables. Like in this, we have is a average of number of days a credit customer pays us. So it has been considered as 5 days, right? So we always prefer that the account receivable days should always be shorter, so that we can have positive.
Swati, could you
cash
go a
flow.
bit slower, please? Sorry to interrupt. Could you go a bit slower?
Okay, fine. Basically, we believe that for a business point of view, our account receivable days should always be shorter, so that our creditors are able to pay us in a shorter period of time. So we have positive cash flow which is better for our business, so that we have free cash flow and very less of our receivables are going into bad debts. So that is our motive to see whether our business is profitable. Are we able to convert our sales into cash or not, or are we able to good at collecting our money from the creditors? So that is the most important point in a business. Then we have inventory days. So inventory days we have in this average holding period of an inventory before it turns into sales. So it is a average holding period for the inventory before it turns into sale, which has been taken here as 120 days, then 100 days, 90 for different years. Okay, and this also needs to be shorter, so that we are able to convert our stocks into sales. That is also a good for the business. So our holdings should be lesser as possible. Then we have inventory turns. Okay, this inventory turns tells about the procurement cycle, how frequently we are able to procure. So shorter our inventory days, quicker you are able to convert into sales. So this is also the key metrics we should look into. So Swati, sorry to interrupt. Sorry, go ahead, Akanksha.
Go, please. I just had one query. Swati, inventory holding days, can you please explain this again? Just wanted clarity.
Inventory days is likely how much period of time you hold your inventory before it converted into sale. If demand is less in the market, then you have to hold it for a more period of time, right?
Okay.
If you are able to market your products well, so your inventory
Mhm.
holding time will be less. You are able to convert into sale much faster.
So inventory turns is related to inventory days. So you're saying that when we will sell the inventory, only then we will purchase. That is the inventory turns.
Inventory turns is how frequently you are buying your inventory, right? Well, what is
So
the inventory cycle? What is the procurement cycle?
okay, so days is the selling cycle and inventory turn is the procurement cycle.
It is the number of days you hold. Well,
That is
time period.
inventory days.
And that is the frequency actually, inventory turns.
Inventory turns is the
Number
frequency of
of times,
inventory.
number of times in a year you are able to purchase.
Let
Rajiv,
me
I am
help you.
correct or not?
You're right, Swati, you're absolutely right. But let me simplify it even further with an everyday example. Okay, so everyone, right? Let's tune in. Inventory days. Okay, this is in expressed in number of days. Okay, let's take a household, like any household. Okay, typically, for how many days would you store the groceries for? 30 days?
Yeah, around
Yeah.
average.
Around. Chalo 20 to 45 days. Average it out at 30 days, depending household to household, number of people, right? But on an average, that's the inventory holding
Right.
days. Which means
Right.
after those days are over, you have to restock, you have to reprocure. So it's a procurement cycle there.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you're holding inventory at a household, your groceries for 30 days, okay, how many times in a year will you procure?
12 times.
How did you arrive at that number?
So, what? 360 divided by 30?
Correct. That's your inventory turns. Those many times you're turning in inventory into your production cycle or sales cycle. Correct.
Right.
Now everyone clear? Does that help you? It's the same thing with a business. How long does it hold raw materials or finished goods or work in progress for? Correct. Now this is e-commerce, so there is no production, which means all that you're stocking is finished goods, right? And different warehouses that they have. Sounds good?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Now, should the inventory days, if it is decreasing, is it a good sign or a bad sign? In your household, what's happening? Think about a household. If your inventory days are decreasing, what will happen?
It's
You will
more
have
consumption.
Consumption is
It's-
more.
consumption is more, correct? Now, same thing in a business. If consumption is more, that's a good sign, right? Why? Because you're expecting sales to also increase, which means you will invest more in working capital to procure more. So your inventory turns will also increase. You will procure more number of times in a day, in a year. Sounds good? Yes, no?
Yes.
Swati, I know you are clear. How about the rest? Nachiket, Kaustubh, Devanshi, Akash, all clear?
Yes, yes.
Others?
Yes,
Clear
it's
now.
clear.
Yeah, Rajiv.
Now, inventory days. What are you doing? You're procuring. That is your cost of goods sold, correct? COGS in your P&L. The more you procure, the more you're producing, the more you're processing, the more you're storing, in the hope of selling more. So your COGS will go up, right? If you're procuring more. Is that logic clear? Are you able to connect?
Yes.
Okay. And this is a business driver of COGS. Instead of just saying COGS is 20% of sales, it means nothing, right? Hey, tell me why is the COGS increasing or decreasing? That's more important to know, correct? So when you know what are the building blocks of every line item on the financials, that's when you truly understand Dhanda. Sounds good now?
Yes.
Looking beyond numbers, everyone clear, comfortable?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Current, I think we have not done this, right?
No, we haven't done this, but we did the capex, right?
Yeah. Okay, yes,
Explain
capex.
how do you look at capex? How do you look at depreciation from a pure business standpoint, not from accounting standpoint?
It is a platform business, like it is a technology driven business, as we have seen. So much of the expanding is done on the capex for procuring more and more customers. So basically, here the technology is the basic capex expenditure which we are considering. And here my mindset got changed because I was thinking it is a non-cash expenditure. No, sorry. So basically, the capex is the most expensive expenditure in case of technology-driven market. So like it generally a tech cycle. So it generally gets in a obsolete in 5 years period of time. So basically, the useful life is taken 5 years, and it depends vary from business to technology to technology in which business model it is being used and how much time it takes to get obsolete. So according to that, we have taken the different useful life for various technologies. So here the technology development expenditure has been taken year on year. And then we have office equipments. Then we have acquisitions. This we have not done.
Okay, ask any questions on capex.
We have R&D in this.
Yeah, R&D is also a part of, can be, if it is a huge expenditure, then it will be considered as a part of capex.
R&D, Suryansh, is always a part of capital expenditure. Okay, purely from a business perspective. I'm not getting into accounting standards of which part of R&D needs to be expensed out, which part needs to be capitalized. That's a very accounting thing to do. But when you're redoing the accounts, the financials from a pure investment decision-making perspective, R&D is capex. Okay. Now, this business is not needing R&D, so we are not. You don't see R&D here. Does that help? Suryansh, all okay?
In the pitch book that you shown, that I think it was written that they do their own R&D, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So they are own. That's product development. Yeah, but that's not a very large chunk of it. Okay. So right now we're building. See, there are two parts to it, right? We're building the e-commerce part of the business, the model for the e-commerce part of the business. Then there is the product part of the business. The model for that will be different. Huh? So right now we're looking at the e-commerce leg of the business. Sounds good?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So there are two parts to it, right? Yeah. Okay.
Then we came to the depreciation part. It always we follow the straight line method in case of modeling. So we have taken a straight line method, and we have taken the useful life as 5 years. As I told you that in the tech driven companies, like always there is always evolution of new technologies, and they get obsolete very fast. So you have to acquire new technologies to be there in the market. Then we have this we have not done. Then we have come to this income statement. Then we have linked all the assumptions like gross revenue, that is number of orders which we have, E34. Then we have this gross revenue. That is the total orders placed into average gross order value. Fine. This is E34. That is gross. I'm getting struck. That is a total order placed into average gross order value. Fine. Any problems here? Is it okay with everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is total order placed as we have all calculated, and we have multiplied by the gross order value per order. Fine. Then we have deducted all the discounts, promotions, and we have got the net revenue. After that, we have taken COGS as a 50% or whatever percentage was there given in the assumption C sheets. Should I go there or is it okay?
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
So we
Then
have
we have
taken cost of
calculated.
goods sold as a percentage of net revenue. No,
We have
gross
taken the gross revenue. Gross revenue.
gross revenue. Oh, yes. Why discounts and promotions should not be part of it. All right. Yeah.
Okay. Then we have taken out the gross profit, that is net revenue minus COGS. Okay. Then gross margin as GP by net revenue. Gross profit upon net revenue. Then we have this marketing expenses, that is click.
Our gross,
Whatever we are.
sorry. Our gross margin, you said, is our gross profit upon net revenue.
Right.
Okay.
E115.
So it basically tells us that of the whole
E1.
52.6%. Okay. Can you help me understand what it denotes?
Whatever
As in
margin we are taking.
32.6% is of what?
Like, see, it is showing E115. What is E115? Is your net revenue. Okay.
E115 is gross profit.
Sorry. E115 is your gross profit. Fine. Whatever
Yeah.
gross profit you are getting, you are calculating on your net revenue as a percentage.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Basically, we are calculating profit on a net revenue as after giving all discounts and all. Fine. Okay, then we have variable operating
Sorry.
costs, which will yeah.
Sorry, just to add on to Devanshi's query, Devanshi, if you're getting confused, we discussed we can calculate gross margin as a basis of either net revenue or gross revenue. If we calculate it as a basis of net revenue, then it would be कि इतना actual में we earned, and out of this, these are the expenses we made to earn this revenue, and this led us to the gross margin. And we can also calculate on the basis of gross revenue, then we would all include the discounts and markdowns as well. Both ways it's correct, we can go for both the options. It's just
Will it
we need to
depends
keep a
upon
single basis for our margins, with the contribution margins, gross margins and net profit margins. If we'll calculate, either they all should be on net revenue or they should be on gross revenue to have just a basis for decision making.
I think
Thank you, Vansa.
Then we have variable operating expenses, which will depend upon the numbers of orders being placed. Okay. And the number of site traffic, that is like marketing expenses, that is the click, depends on the click of the customers, and that has been calculated above. Then we have fulfillment cost, that is your packaging and everything, or which you give order to somebody. So to whenever product is ordered, then whatever process takes place from ordering till the time it gets received to your house, that is your order fulfillment cost. Okay. Then we have taken the contribution profit, that is your E115, that is gross profit minus the E121, that is your total variable cost. That comes out to be your gross contribution margin. Then we have as a percentage of it, E112, that is 112, that is net E122, that is contribution profit divided by net revenue. Okay, that you get your contribution margin. Then after that you have fixed operating expenses. In case of fulfillment, you have warehouse cost, that is fixed, and general and administrative expenses, that is also fixed cost. Then you have total. Then you have EBITDA after contribution margin minus the fixed operating expenses, you will get the EBITDA. Then you have EBITDA margin, that is also taken on your net revenue. Fine. Then we have calculated then the depreciation. What we have calculated depreciation has been linked here. We'll go later into that. Then you have earning before tax. After you subtract the depreciation and interest income, then you will get the earning before tax. Then you have calculated taxes. That is the if your see here, the income is negative. If it is less than 0, then you will not be paying any tax. Otherwise, it will be charged as per the percentage given. What is the tax rates?
I think we had taken it to be as 30% or something.
EF104, I think, right? In the cell number F104, it is there, I believe. The tax rate is taken as 25% in the 2019, and 25% is remain constant, right? Then we have calculated the taxes. So we have linked everything and we have prepared the net income statement. Few things are missing that will be catered later. Then we have balance sheet items. From here, can anybody take the control?
Okay, Swati, that was good. All right. Who walks us through the remaining portions? No one?
Shall I
Fatima?
continue after this?
Okay. Turn up. Okay. Go slow.
Okay. First, let's get on to the depreciation chart, which we are left with in the income statement. So for depreciation, we need the capital assets schedule. So since it's the startup year, we do not have any opening balance. We have additions to our technology year on year. So we've just taken this from the above assumption engine. Then there comes the subtotal. Then for technology, this is the total for all the assets, that is technology and property and equipment. Now we calculate the depreciation. So it's two-way. This is year on year. The depreciation, total depreciation which we'll be charging, and if we go vertically, this is for particular assets, what would be the depreciation year on year. This is the difference between the years taken in this column and in the rows taken above. So for 2019, just a second. The first year depreciation we've calculated basis E209 and E94. That is the total value of technology, the 3 lakh we calculated above, and divided by the number of years, that is 5 years we considered. In the assumptions engine we had taken this. So since this asset is for 5 years, we consider the same. Now this formula, it basically represents that if the current year, if 2019 the year of purchase plus 1 year is up to 5 years, then this year would consider it consider depreciation, otherwise not, because for this for an asset we have considered the useful life as 5 years. Thus we need to place a formula so that assets get depreciated only up to 5 years, and we do not need to place formulas again and again. Is this formula clear to all, or shall we walk through this formula again?
आप एक बार ही बता दोगे सेल वाइज, क्योंकि ना मैं थोड़ी सी कंफ्यूज हो गई हूँ, if you don't mind.
Okay, let's go to it. So first is F2, which is 2019. So sorry, F2 is 2020. So we say F2 if it is greater than and your A220, that is 2019 plus your 5 years. So 2019 plus 5 will give you 2024. 24. So 24 is 2020 is now lesser than 2024. So this is going to put up the first year's value, that is 60,000. इसलिए यहाँ पे 60,000 consider हो गया.
Yeah, now I got it. I had just lost track on the 2020 part. Now I'm okay with it. Thank you.
Okay. Similarly, for additions made in 2020, we have considered the value, the depreciation, and so on and so forth. For year on year, the additions and the depreciation has been calculated with respect to the same formula. This leads us to the annual depreciation on the technology assets, which we have either additions or the new assets, or the old assets which we already had the total depreciation calculated. Then this is here we are considering the total of depreciation for both PPE and property and equipment and technology. Then we have the closing balance, that is the total current year value of technology reduced by the depreciation. This is the balance sheet figure which we have calculated here, and this 60,000 is what we saw while Swati was walking us through the income statement. So from here we received that value. I hope the depreciation schedule is clear to all. If there are any questions or confusions, please. Shall we go ahead?
No, it's okay.
Swati,
Everyone.
is there anything?
Anything else?
No problem.
All okay?
Yes.
Everyone?
Actually, I wanted to ask
Yes.
why there is no problem.
Sorry?
Why there is no property and equipment in this? I mean, there's like no warehouse or anything.
We didn't consider it last time. That's why we
Yes.
just left it blank.
If you'll check, we have it. Just 1 second, I'll take you there.
We have a warehouse rented, right, as a fixed expense.
Yes, warehouse rent as a fixed expense.
Office equipments and all are there.
We calculated depreciation for just technology.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I got it.
Correct? So, Suryansh, there could be a business model where one of the cost elements is warehouse, but it is a capex. So you can include that in capex. The idea is there is architecture, right? You're learning architecture of the model. So you can plug any component in any part of the architecture. You get that? Are you sure? Yes. Does
Yeah, I
that make
get it.
sense? Okay. Like,
Yeah, it does.
let me ask you. Can you name an e-commerce company which owns a lot of warehouses? And that's why it's in capex and not in the opex. Yes. Can someone name?
Amazon.
Amazon, absolutely, Surya. So if you look at Amazon's model, a large chunk of their warehouse is in capex, not a large chunk in opex. Right now, in this model, it's in opex. Sounds good because the business model is such. Every business model is different. As long as you know what the architectural principles are, you'll be able to model it. Sounds good? Yeah, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so since I'm going to take since we started the day with medical technologies, I'm going to use a medical analogy here. How to think about financial modeling? Think about financial modeling the way you study surgery, like heart surgery, right? Okay, there are certain principles of the heart surgery. Okay, the heart, yes, these are the different parts of the heart, the arteries, the coronary arteries. Okay, you have the ventricles, the auricles. Okay, you have the different valves in it. Fair enough. But yes, you know how to operate these arteries and how to insert a stent in it. Okay, for a bypass. But that's the architecture of it. But every heart patient, every heart surgery you will do is going to be very, very unique, correct, to that particular situation and condition. Does that make sense? Does that analogy help? So you need to think like a surgeon while you're doing actually finance. Okay, get the principles in your head, and then be prepared that every situation is going to be different and unique. Apply those principles, adapt it. Okay, does that help? Swati, I think you got it right from the healthcare perspective.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I hope the others too. Okay, good. Chalo. So should we now proceed to the next elements now? Where did we stop last time? Scroll down. We went to the balance sheet. Correct.
Part, we have to do liabilities now.
No, wait. Scroll down. We still have to model plant and property and equipment. Just quickly model that, right? So we have total assets and just check if that reflects in the P&L as well. Correct? So the asset part is over minus the cash. Cash will end at the end. We will look at it at the end. Okay. So let me ask everyone. Let me personally go around. Everyone okay? So far so good. Everyone on the same page? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Krishmita, Bansha, Kaustubh, Mayuri, Preeti.
Rajiv, just one
Yes,
question.
Rajiv.
Yes, Rajiv.
Yes.
Devanshi, what's your question?
You mentioned earlier today, right, that you'll take us through cohort analysis later.
Yeah, but let's first finish this part, then cohort analysis will make
Yeah. No. I was just reconfirming if I'm thinking correct. we can do it whenever it fits the
I'll
schedule.
introduce it at the right time. Now it is premature. Let's first
Right.
finish the essential parts. Okay?
Sure, sure.
Okay. We don't want premature babies, right? So hold on. Easy.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure. So who's gonna do the property and equipment? Start modeling for that. We fix the total assets, then we go to liability side. Chalo, go ahead. Take control.
Can I try?
Go all. It's all
If
yours.
anyone else is not.
I would urge everyone to volunteer. Okay, that's the way to learn. Everyone should volunteer. At least one line item. What is this? Why was this false? Okay.
Both there was a little hiccup when I was taking the control. So property and equipment will be similar to what we had defined. This office equipment. It will be similar to this office equipment that we had taken.
How did you arrive at that?
Have to calculate depreciation first, right?
Was it to build the schedule, right?
Oh shit! Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I just took the whole amount. Okay. Where are we at depreciation schedule? Is it on sheet 1?
Same sheet, same sheet.
You're lost. You're lost in the anatomy of the heart.
No, I'm a little, but I'm just trying to figure out.
You prematurely plugged in the stent, even without incision. Okay, now you're in the right artery.
I got lost. Yes. Okay, so we'll take opening balance. It will be property and equipment. Opening balance will be. Please tell me if I'm correct. This should be the opening balance, right?
Devanshi, it would be nil. Because
Zero
we are in the startup year.
Equipment also, I was just wondering if it's something. I'll just do.
First, you go to the schedule, I think.
I'm just doing that, but this control is a little slow. I'm just going there only.
This is called robotic surgery, remotely operated.
It's E90. You're come down. You're going up.
I just wanted to check if there is any opening balance. Will we
No.
not see it?
वो तो नीचे चला गया ना देवांशी ऑफिस इक्विपमेंट
So office equipment, this will be 2 lakh only, E90 only. But you said this will not be the
हाँ, this is
This
not
is
the opening balance. Addition में डालेंगे ना इसको first year में.
for that year, right? So this is spent for that year. That's the assumption. You're spending that much on a certain line item assets for. So understand capex or capex.
Right. Okay. So here I will put that value. It will get here and then subtotal. Is it correct now?
Yes.
कर देते हैं ना फिर ये आएगा उधर का क्लोजिंग बैलेंस.
Divan,
That will come after depreciation, ना?
हाँ, first आप depreciation complete कर लो इस year का.
शेड्यूल बना लो पहले.
ठीक है. Okay. थोड़ी सी लॉस्ट हो गई मैं. So here also we'll use a formula. If my F2 if F2 is greater than if F2 plus
Plus E95.
95 minus 1.
+1, comma.
ठीक है लिखा है ना मैंने. ठीक है. Then it should be if my F2 is greater than this, then it should be 0.
Comma 0.
हाँ, is it not coming? I don't know. Zero.
आ गया दिवांशु. It's right up. No.
Comma same value, right? Then freeze it.
यहाँ पे we'll freeze F4, F25, the whole thing. No, the whole thing. Only freeze E. No.
even if you don't freeze this, you
It's
won't
okay.
have
Yeah.
any problem because इसको drag नहीं करना कहीं.
हाँ. ठीक है, तो इसको रहने देते हैं, इसको कर देते हैं.
F इस column इसको कर लो freeze.
Okay, just wait and ask if everyone understands the logic of this formula. Keep the formula open. I want everyone to.
Yes, sorry. Is everyone okay with the formula?
Yes.
We understand the formula, the logic. Why is it written so? Take every element of the formula. What is E2? What is E230? What is E95? What is 1? What is E230? Every element. Just see.
Let's take the year wise. No? If F2 matlab 220 is greater than 2019
Plus the number of years for which the asset is, the life of the asset.
minus 1.
Yes, if it goes negative, if it's
4.
good. Sorry? So it says if 2020 is greater than, so A230 will be 2019 plus 5, which is 24, minus 1 is 23. So if it goes, if 2020 is still above 23, we'll take the depreciation. If it goes negative, then there will not be any, then the value will be 0.
Everyone?
Hello.
Yep. Riya,